Hi everyone to this mini course about Heptabase, where we will dive deeper into the basics of Heptabase, how to set it up, all the details and so on, in preparation for the Heptabase ICOR Pro course. So whenever you want to dive in and really want to understand the concepts and workflows, how to master Heptabase, I highly recommend to then move on to the Heptabase ICOR Pro course. This course is really about the basics.
Paperless movement, your productivity, your way.
Okay, let's dive in. I will now quickly go through the different meta apps that you see inside Heptabase. This will also show you how Heptabase is structured and gives you an idea. If you come from Obsidian or Notion, you might be familiar with a few things, but Heptabase, they made it really smart that everything is interconnected. So I just want to point out that cards in Heptabase are the central item on Heptabase. Okay, so this is really where you take your notes, where you have your notes stored. So you can see it as pages in Notion or your notes in Obsidian and so on. So here in cards, you will create your cards. On maps, you can create your whiteboards and then bring in your cards in order to connect them with each other. And don't worry, I will show you in a moment how all this looks together. And on Journal, this is a own meta app where you have daily journals where the days in itself are cards, but these cards are not shown on the card library. So you can see them as cards for the day. So whenever you go through back in time and you have a calendar here as well. So here's a dot. So this means there is a note, and you see here, okay, there are notes, and here you see the dot as well. This indicates that you made some notes there. But in general, this is where you can take your daily notes. Again, if you want to dive deep into how to use the journal and how to integrate the workflows and concepts, this is explained in great detail in layer 3 of the Heptabase ICOR Pro course. Here, I just show you the general features. So on a journal card, you have all the formatting options that you would see on a normal card as well. So you can, add PDFs, you can add files, audio files, images, all the different headings and so on. There's not much more to say about the journal. The great thing is when you write something down in journal, like creating my first card, and you have several other things that you have there, I can write this down. And as you can see, the formatting in Heptabase, maybe you know it from Notion or similar applications, there are blocks. Okay, so each line is a block. And now I can do things with these individual blocks. That's the smallest entity inside Heptabase. And now I can convert this block into a card. But before I do this, I will go further and use this to make an outlining here, create my first card. Here, all information. And now the whole thing you see, so it recognizes these intended blocks as one block above. Now I can turn this whole block into a card. I could also go here and turn the intended blocks into individual cards. But I want to show you what happens when I click here. And now as I turn into new card, boom. Now you see it took the highest level of the outlining and used this as a title and created a card. So now when I click here, it opens the card. And here you go. It took the title, creating my first card, and brought the things in here. And this is a card. So this means when I go now to the card library, you see the first card was created. I can click here and here's my card. So now you see already on these cards, I can make this full screen. I can close the sidebars and I can hide the info. And now I have full focus on this card. But now when I have this open, let me show you what you actually can do if you show the info, because the info is really powerful. It's the place where you find your backlinks. So that's where something you might be familiar with, Obsidian or Logseek or Roam Research, where you have backlinks that shows where this card was referenced in. And the great thing is it doesn't only show the cards being referenced in other cards, but also in different places. So here we see it's the journal, and in October 7th, it takes the date, this card was referenced. So I can now click here and it opens the journal entry on the side. And that's the nice thing in Heptabase. Now I have both next to each other. I could swap these. I can have a separate open tab. And now you see this is now centered. When I open the sidebar, Now I see it created these tabs, and these are your recent cards and places you've been in Heptabase. So here is creating my first card. That was the two that we had opened, but we also opened it separately in this. So this is where you can easily navigate back and forth between all the different cards that you had open and the whiteboards that you had open over time. There's also a keyboard shortcut. You can use Command and the brackets back and forth in order to navigate through these. But this is in general all you need to know. Okay, now let's stay on this card. And here again, I can open this up and I say open a new tab. You can also say Command Enter. So open this in a new tab. And now you see here, it opened this in a separate tab. When I go back, you still see both of them. Okay. So now we are inside this card. And now let's focus more again on the referencing system inside Heptabase. So let's create a new card. And I could create a new card out of one of the sub bullets here. So I just turn into new card and now this is a card. And now I can click on the card and now you see this is now the other card that we just created, and you see incoming backlinks, creating my first card and where it is mentioned. So when I click here, see it shows me where it was referenced. And if I open this in a separate tab and I'm only in this node and I click here, it opens the other node and it shows me where this was mentioned. Well, this is obvious in a small card like this, but cards can be big documents. You can have thousands and thousands of words in there and images and all this, and then it becomes really interesting and helpful to have these references, because then it moves into the place inside the card where this was mentioned, and this is really powerful. What you also can see, this is now incoming backlinks from a card, whereas this one is from the journal. So now let's reference this card again, creating my first card. You see there's the dates here, creating my first card. So let's reference, now we are going back and forth. But when I go now to this card, now you see it's mentioned on the journal and it is mentioned in this node. And that's really nice how Heptabase structures the different referencing. And now you will see when we go to maps and we create our first whiteboard, right click and click whiteboard. And we go into this whiteboard. We can easily rename this whiteboard here. And we bring in cards that we just mentioned. We have several ways to do this. One would be to hit Command O. And therefore you can search for cards. Let's search for creating, and there we go already, create my first card. But it shows me now also the blocks. And you see I could create a new card with just creating. But that's the thing that we want. And now you see already here, Shift Enter to add to whiteboard. And that's really powerful. Here you see a preview of what we've been searching for. But now let's hit Shift Enter. And there we go. Now we have the card on our whiteboard. And that's really great. If we now go back to this card, we now see down here another reference, whiteboard, first whiteboard. So you see it shows me the card was mentioned in another card. It was mentioned in one of my journals on October 7th, and it's mentioned on a first whiteboard. And this is a real nice differentiation where this card appears. Now I can click on this, it goes to the whiteboard, and you see it highlights this. So let's add another card here, just a new one, new card, for example. And I just created this by right clicking. So you see you have several options there, but we go into more detail when we talk about the whiteboard. Now we still want to talk about the cards here. So now you see I created this card and this card. Both are deselected. Let's go to the create my first card. Here we see it's mentioned on the whiteboard. I click there, boom. It highlights this card. Same as when I move this away and I click there. Boom, it centers the thing. So you can imagine if you have a huge whiteboard, it will zoom into where this card was mentioned. And this is similar to the big document where it scrolls to the place inside the document or inside another card where this was mentioned. And this is really powerful because you stay always in control of everything inside Heptabase. Now, to see the updates, let's go to card library, and there we go. We already have 3 cards in here, and we see there is one that is not categorized. So you're always able to follow up with cards that have no context. We can also remove the filter, and we can go to whiteboards. And here we see first whiteboard. When we click there, these are the two cards that we mentioned on the whiteboard. And then we have custom filters, where we can now say, show all results matching all of the following criteria. I can create rules, and look at this here. We can have a keyword that it's filtering by. We can have a whiteboard that contains something like this, so it only shows this. And then I have several whiteboards. I can combine a lot of things, or keyword. So I could now have, right now there's only one whiteboard, but I could combine it with several whiteboards. And then I can save this one as a saved filter, which is amazing. So there we go. Save. Now I could go here and change things. Does not contain first whiteboard. And therefore I could now rename this and say only cards not on whiteboards. And therefore now I created a filter that shows me all the cards that are not placed on a whiteboard. So here, because here I have already a filter that shows me the cards that are on whiteboards. But now I also have a filter that is now available here, the cards that are not on whiteboards. So this is where I really think it's already nice, the filter options that you have inside Heptabase in order to filter this card library. Now let's dive a bit deeper into the info section here, because we talked about backlinks and referencing, and you see how this is appearing. Now we have one more thing to give this card more context, to find it easier later on. And those are the tags and the properties inside the tags. It might sound complicated at first, but now I want to show you how we will use tags to give context to any card. And then I will show you how to use properties inside the tags to create databases. And you will see it is very easy. So let's say creating my first card, we give it a tag tutorial. Okay. And as we don't have any tags yet, when we go to tag, that's the tag library. It's empty. There are no tags yet. So we can easily create new tags by just doing it inside the card, because we never need to lose focus and context in order to add new things to our database. So that's much more convenient, creating it here, then going to tag, create it there, and then coming back. So I really like this. And we can add as many tags as we like to the card, but now we have just one. You can click on this tag and it will open up the tag you see on here. And this looks already a lot like a database, right? So what this means is that it shows you the name of the cards that this tag is applied to. And now we have here the properties. These are the properties that we can now add to the tutorial tag in order to give it even more context. So what this means, I show you now. You have, for example, a select property. And in this select property, let's name it tutorial type. And then I have the option to now search for options. There are none. So I start writing and say cards. Okay, so because in this card, we explain cards. Now I could have more like whiteboards. So now I have already a selection field, and you see I have a database there. I can even create a new card inside here. And again, I just mentioned it. I'm able to create a new tag inside a card. I'm also able to create a new card inside the table. So let's do this. Let's create this card, open it up. You see, I'm not leaving context in the background. It's still there. And now I say creating my first whiteboard. There we go. We already created the card in here. And as we created it here, it automatically applied the tag, obviously, here as well. So now I can say this is about whiteboards, this card. I can resize this to show it better. And then let's keep going with this idea and say creating my first journal entry. And you see it's already applied. And the thing is, it shows me the properties. Now I can also select here the new property. But again, if the property is not there, I could now write down journal. There we go. I can change the colors of this. And there we go. Now we see already context there. Let's open up the other one. And now you see our initial card shows me a lot of context already. We created it on October the 7th. We mentioned this card in the journal. If you remember, we created it actually on the journal itself without leaving the journal. Then we mentioned it in another card, even more information. We mentioned this card as well. Then we placed the card on our first whiteboard. Then we gave it the tags, which is tutorial, and the tutorial type, which is cards. So now we could go on with this and give it a multi-selection. We can pick a date if there is any, if you create meeting notes, for example, then we could have a meeting date property, and then we can select a date and select 2 and then a different one. And now we have the option to create a new view. And the new view lets you create a Kanban out of this. So you see now, there are now all my cards categorized into the different property selections that we have there. So I can group here by tutorial type. So you have to have a selection type in order to do this. And they will appear here. Now I can even easily move this card here. And now the journal entry, when we click that, opens up. The journal entry has now the property type cards. If we go back to the table, we see it updated here as well. Obviously, that's a journal where I change it back. Going here, everything is synchronized. That's really nice. And you have a filter as well to filter things. So let's create a new table view. And we have a filter here. And now I can say only show me the cards where the property type is journal. But this is essentially how the databases work. The amazing thing is that if you have a text property, inside the text property, I can mention other cards. So let's create a connection to even more information, the other card. And now it's in here. And I can even click on this and it opens the card. But I can also mention a date. I can write today, I can write yesterday, and you see it shows me the dates here. I can say last week, see, last Saturday, and I can click here and boom. So I really like how I can easily pick dates as well. And then I can click on this date and it actually opens up the date of this journal. Okay, so now I can write something down. This is and I go to the journal. Let's go to the September the 30th. And here you see already a blue dot. So I'm expecting it worked. See, now there it is. So now I could mention here October. I can click there. And you see, here we are in October. And then again, in October, you see it was referenced by September. So you see all this referencing really works. So that's why I usually add the dates on the card, because this, first of all, is very dynamic. So I can just search for today and so on. I don't have to write down the dates. And it's also functional. When I click now on this October thing, it shows me that this date was referenced in this card. And therefore, I always have context. When I go back to this date, I know that I made some updates in any other cards. So that's a great way to leverage the journal even in an opposite way, the other way around. So without going to the journaling, I go to my cards and I just say update and then I say yesterday to pick a different date. And then I will just write something down. Now, if I go to this date, I see now the reference here. Oh, there was an update. Let's see what this is. I click there. It opens this up. Now we are on this journal card. We see the update. I click here and boom. It opens up the card and it scrolls to the place. Again, if you have just one card with a lot of updates, this is relevant. You can go through back in time and you will always see all the different mentions that you have made updates in a different card. So to me, this is a great way also to leverage the journal. Okay, so I think this is enough about talking about cards and the journaling. One last thing about the tags. You can always go here to the tag library and all the tags start appearing here. You also see a number that indicates how many cards do have this tag. When I click there, you will open up the relevant tag. It stays here. And then you have your database of all the different cards that you created with this tag. And the great thing is a card can have several tags, so they can exist in different databases. But if you stay in here, you have here now the option to group these tags. So let's name this tutorial tags, and I can easily drag this into here. And then let's have person tags. And then you could have additional tags here. You can create new ones like friends. And we could have another one that's called clients. So now we have two different tags, and we move them down here. And now we have the person tags, and now I could have a new card. And you can always create a new card also by going here or hitting Command N. And then you can create a card like Tom Solid, and you could either pick friends or clients, or even both. Maybe it's a friend and a client at the same time. And now you see both show that there is a card available. If I click on clients, there's Tom Solid. I can click here, I see Tom Solid. I see there are more. I can click here, move to the friends. You see, I'm consistently in a flow going through my information. And that's the amazing thing about Heptabase, that everything is interconnected. Talking about interconnectivity, one of the key features of Heptabase is really the visualization of your information. And that's what we will talk about next. It's the whiteboarding and the mind mapping. So let's go back to the map. You see from a previous part that we created already this whiteboard in order to show you the backlinking and the referencing on a card. Now we will go in here and talk more about whiteboards. So here's our first whiteboard. This is the top level of all your whiteboards. If you want to learn how we use the whiteboarding, you can check out the Heptabase Like a Pro course, because in there we talk about myICOR, where Paco dives really deep into how to set up your LiveOS, how to have the key elements to manage your live, to create different buckets, to place the information in the right way, and then finally move from information to action. This is all part of the Heptabase Like a Pro course. Here we will really just dive into how all the things work. So we opened up now this whiteboard, and now I have these two cards there already. Now I can go here or use Command 2, and then I can connect the cards, and now they have a nice connection. You see it's very dynamic as well, and you can select this arrow and you can change the colors. You can change arrows if it should go both ways. You can also change the style, so now it's curvy. We can also change this into this, and that's actually the way I prefer to make the diagrams and the connections. We can change the thickness to make it more visible or dotted, and we can also add text. There we go. And now this is a connection. What we can also do on whiteboards is grouping things together. If you're using Miro, you know the frames that you can create there, and that has not only a visual advantage when you do this, so you can select everything that you want to group. It will also have a practical advantage. So I show you what this means. When you select the things, you have the three dots here. You could also right click to do this, where you say create a section, or use Command G. But let's go to the three dots here, and essentially it just opens all the same menu. And here you can then create a new section. Now you see the section was wrapped around, and let's keep this for section 1. And now I can pick the section and move everything around without the need to select all these things. Let's bring a few more cards to this whiteboard. Therefore we open the sidebar here. And you see here I can start searching for cards. I can have the card library showing up, and I have also my filters. So you see here the custom filters, and we created the one before that shows cards that are not on whiteboards yet. And let's pick them. So we have the person Tom Solid that we created before creating my first whiteboard. Let's bring all of them in. And now I can start working with them. And the amazing thing is that these cards can be added to many other whiteboards as well. So this is the great thing. They will always stay in the card library. So when I remove this one, you see it updates the filter. It's now there. But now let's go quickly back and create a second whiteboard. And just to keep things consistent, say second whiteboard. And now let's open this up again. And here you see the filter is still active. There's the one. I bring it in here. Now you see it's there. Let's go back to the map, open the other one, open this one, and move this in here as well. And here you see already very nicely all the cards that are already existing on your whiteboards are grayed out. I think that's very nice visual feedback that we have here. So we instantly see this one isn't on our whiteboard yet. So I will just drag it in and you see this gets grayed out as well. But look at this. Now compared to the others, when I select them, this one says appears in 2 whiteboards. So this is really great. I know exactly where this is appearing. So I click there and I get all the details about the card and the 2 different whiteboards. Let's click on the second whiteboard. Boom. It moves here. I click there and let's move back to this one. There we go. So now we have everything there. Let's connect these with each other. Let's change this nice look. And another trick is when you try to align something here, you see it's snapping in already. Let's make this a bit bigger. Sometimes it's hard to align it, especially if you do it this way. So you can just press and hold Shift, and then it's even better to connect it. So when I have a connection, it's more obvious. So when I try to make this, you know this, how hard this is to align this. When you hit Shift, boom, it's much easier. So now everything is crystal clear. And I can organize this a lot better. I can select both of them, hit Shift and move this up. You see, that's really helpful actually. So here again, instead of trying to match this, just hit Shift and there we go. Now everything is in line. There we go. And there we go. Now select all of them and again, create a section. Now we have 2 sections here. And as you can see, the great thing is now I can move the whole section around without selecting this. I also can give it by right-clicking different colors. So that's nice visual differentiation here between the different sections. I can rename the section by just clicking on this, or I just rename it here. And you can fit it to the content. So for example, when I close this, because that's the amazing thing on whiteboards actually, that I have the cards and the cards can be open or closed. So this is very dynamic and I have full control over these cards here. So I can even, let's bring another card a second time, just because they're grayed out doesn't mean you can bring it a second time. Let's bring this in. Now I could move the card and bring it into the other card as you can see here. And now you see the card is embedded. So let's go to this card down here and let's start writing something. Founder of the paperless movement. And you see how it's updating on every place. And now this is actually inside the card. So the card is actually embedded, but we could turn this also into a mention. So it's not embedded anymore, but just again for showing purposes, here I'm on the whiteboard. That's my whiteboard. Here's the card that I just brought in. And you can see I can easily just add more info and it's updating on the mention here. So that's essentially that you might know as synced blocks. The thing is I cannot update the block on this end. Okay. So, but I can click here and I show immediately where this card was mentioned on the whiteboard, or I can turn this into a mention as I said. And now we have a mention here and you see it updated the card because we are inside the card, right? That's showing here. So if you have 20 different whiteboards and you mention this card on all of them, the cards always stay updated. And that's a key feature of Heptabase, that you don't have to worry about duplicating information and to keep manually track of all the different information in all the different places. Let's close this and you see that it's selected. I can move through these with my arrow keys on the keyboard as well. That's very nice. And I can hit spacebar in order to open the preview and then still move through the different cards. And inside the preview, I can then Command Enter, or I just use this and open in order to open the card. And then I can hide this, I can hide this. And now I have full focus on this card and I can start writing. Focus on this, then I show and I quickly be able to jump to the whiteboard that this is mentioned in. Boom, I go there and you see I can start writing. You could open it this way. So this is really powerful. What you also can do is just easily drag and drop in images. So you see I just dragged in a thumbnail from a video. Boom, there it is. They are now just on the whiteboard. So they are not automatically creating cards. I can do this by also right click and say text. This is a text. See? This is not a card, so this means this is not mentioned anywhere. However, whenever I consider this should be a card, I just right click and say, turn this in a card. I can use the image and I can add this to this card, and now I have everything inside one card. So isn't this amazing? I really like it. First, Heptabase video. And again, Markdown is working easily. I just use the Markdown thing. I can open this up in the sidebar. I can make it full screen and so on. And you see how this is filling up on the side very quickly. It's now easy to navigate and going backwards in all my thought processes that I had this day. Okay, now let's collapse this so we don't see my face all the time. And there we go. Now, nice and clean. And I can move this out, connect it there, and then connect it down here. So I really like this way of working. And you can imagine how over time, what amazing whiteboards you create. And whenever things become too complex, I just right click and create a new whiteboard inside this whiteboard. I select all the things here and I move it to this whiteboard. There we go. Now it's gone. I click there and you see everything stayed. We still have the section. I can move this over here and you see the section auto increases. Something I really like. And whenever you decide going back, you can go to the three dots and say fit to content. The key here is really what I wanted to show you is how easy it was to clean up the complex whiteboard and combine everything into one place and then say here, sub first whiteboard. I can give this a whiteboard a different color on this board. And now I can connect this whiteboard with this section, for example, and I still have the same context. Or actually we connected it before with this one, right? But you get the idea. Now we have a whiteboard inside a whiteboard, which contains something that became too complex, and I was able to easily clean things up very quickly. Now another thing I want to show you, you go to maps and you go to the second whiteboard, and here we can now say right click and link to whiteboard. And there you have the other whiteboards. Now click there and now we have the sub first whiteboard here, but it's not here actually, it's just referenced. So now I can click here and it will move to the sub whiteboard. So you see the breadcrumbs on top. It's still in the same hierarchy. So first whiteboard, sub first whiteboard. Now I want to bring in a very long PDF file because I know that many of you are doing a lot of research and so on, and there Heptabase really shines as well. So I just need to drag and drop a PDF inside my whiteboard here and it creates this PDF card. Okay, so Heptabase has different card types. When you click there, it opens up the PDF, and even that I opened this up in here, I can now easily go there and delete it, but it's not gone. It's still in my card library. You see it here. And now there's a new filter saying PDFs, and I now see all my PDFs. So now let's go back to a whiteboard, and whenever I get lost, I can go to the top level, click here, move there. But obviously I could have gone here very quickly back to my whiteboard. And let's bring back in this PDF file. And you can see I have a lot of options. I can open this PDF file. I can move through the PDF file, and you see this file has 600 pages, which is huge. But let's open this on the sidebar. So you see when you click there, it opens up the PDF file. That's a nice thing that you can resize everything. And now let's do some research on this PDF file. I can delete this file here and I'll start searching. You see already when I hover over this, these are links. So I can jump, they are working in here, and I can select the text. And now I have options to highlight the text or even add a note. So it highlights this and say, this is, and then I can say add to whiteboard. Boom. Now I have it here. What I also can do, I just can drag and drop, and you see I can drag and drop it twice. And the amazing thing is about this type of highlights, scroll to somewhere else in the document, I close the document, and now I'm on my whiteboard and I have this highlight here with my note that I gave there. I always have the option to then either copy, so it copies the highlight and I can paste it somewhere. Here's the icon as well to locate highlight. It's also here. And when you press there, it opens the PDF and it moves to the position inside your PDF. And I think this is really nice. Now you could also change the colors. You know, if you have different definitions for what color you use for what highlight, then you see also that the color changed here now as well. And what you also can do by copying the link to this highlight, copy the link here as well, or when you are inside the PDF, you can press here and copy the link. You can now go to a different card and paste this link here. And now you can say paste as embed or paste as mention. So this allows you to reference now this highlight in your card. So let's say paste as embed. Now it shows me the highlight inside the Tom Solid card. So let's open the Tom Solid card. Now you see the highlight out of the PDF inside the card. And I always can easily turn this into a mention. I can click here. It opens up the PDF and scrolls directly to this point. And then if you're in the PDF card, you find all the highlights as a convenient list on the right side. So if I select something else and say this, there we go. And I can also add the notes then later on here. There we go. And now I could go here and say add to whiteboard. And here I'm now able to say, well, just add this to my first whiteboard. Boom. I can click here. It goes to the whiteboard. And there we are. It added it. Now I could just keep doing this without going to the whiteboard, if it is, for example, a new one, and then I start later on restructuring everything, connecting the things, making notes out of my highlight maybe again. I never have to worry if I delete this highlight that it is gone, because now you see there's a new highlight meta app that appeared. As soon as you start doing highlights, you get this meta app highlight here. You can click here, you see all the highlights that you have, and it will appear here. And if you use the Readwise integration, all your Readwise highlights will appear here as well, all categorized by all the different content that you created. So here I can click there, it opens up the PDF and shows me all the highlights. And I think this is really amazing that we have full control over everything. So now let's do a quick recap here. We started talking about cards, and all the cards are in our card library. Even if I delete it in different places or remove mentions, they remain here. You always have the option to completely delete them as well. Then we have the journal, which are cards in themselves. Each day is a card, and you get context always. So whenever we go to something where we mention something, and then here you go down there are the backlinks of the things that we mentioned. When we go now to this card, we have even more context, which are the tags. So I added a tag tutorial and I created a databases here, and where it is mentioned also on whiteboards. I easily can click on the whiteboard, it moves to the whiteboard and shows me the card. So you see how now, on the end of this mini course, how everything is interconnected. I think this is really amazing. But we are still just scratching the surface. I simply showed you around how all this works. But in order to effectively use Heptabase like a pro, we have a course that's called Heptabase like a pro. And there we dive into the concepts and workflows that we think are the most efficient to use Heptabase as your overall PKM system, in order to not only store information, but also move your information into action. And I think this is really key. This is why we think it's perfect for busy professionals as well. It's not only for knowledge workers or researchers. It's really great. So I highly recommend to you as a next step to watch the Heptabase like a pro course, to dive even deeper into what we just showed you here, to be able to really apply it to your life and to your work, how you manage projects, how you set your goals, and all this is described in this Heptabase like a pro course. So I cannot wait to catch you up in the Heptabase like a pro course and see what amazing outcomes you will have there.